When Enola Holmes came out, some people thought Henry Cavill was too handsome to be Sherlock Holmes. One of the plot points in the Enola Holmes series by Nancy Springer is that Enola is not considered very attractive. Mycroft tells her that she'll have a hard time finding a husband because her facial features look too similar to Sherlock's, implying that both of them are kinda ugly by Victorian standards. But I think that this version of Sherlock Holmes is effectively unattractive because of the way that he carries himself. And what I mean by that is he fails to respectably handle himself like a Victorian aristocrat. And what I mean by that is look at that monstrosity of a hatless head. When Sherlock and Mycroft are introduced, you can immediately see how differently they carry themselves. Mycroft is the perfect example of the classic Victorian gentleman. He has the suit. He has the cane and the gloves, which were common fashion accessories of his class. He has the mustache, which is also pretty common. He has a slim build, the straight posture, and most importantly, he has the standard top hat. Sherlock also wears the suit, the cane, and he doesn't have gloves or a mustache, but that's fine, that's optional. What is not optional is that disgrace of nothing above his hair. That is crossing a line. Victorian England had some pretty dominating fashion etiquette, and the one thing you must never ever do if you're a Victorian man, but especially a gentleman, is go outside without wearing a hat. The hat was used to convey respect, especially towards women. If you met a woman, if you walked by a woman, you lifted your hat. It was polite. And Sherlock is an aristocrat, so he should know more than anyone that going hatless is a definite cause for turning heads. It's a definite turn-off for women who might want him for a husband because he's not acting as a gentleman ought. He's made himself unrespectable in that regard. And that is extremely interesting that this version of Sherlock is unattractive by choice, because on all other accounts of fashion, he still strives to be the classic British gentleman. His style is impeccable, and throughout the film, you see him being much more polite than other modern adaptations of the character, so why do something that so strictly visually degrades him in this society? First of all, there's something very crucial to note about the Enola Holmes version of Sherlock is that he's not considered the great detective yet. Not to the full extent. Consider what Miss Harrison says.
The name Holmes is coming to mean something in this country.
So he's not there yet. And then Edith. Edith is key to understanding his reputation.
No wife, no friends, just a strange occupation obsessed with footprints and coal dust.
I am convinced that this is how most of London sees him right now. On one hand, he's admired because he's intelligent and famous, but if you listen to the other comments made about him, especially with that introductory explanation about him by Enola, he's treated kind of like a sideshow, and in polite Victorian society, he's hitting all the wrong marks. And he never assumes his authority unless it's within the very niche profession that he's made for himself.
Yep. Sir? Don't be ridiculous.
Scotland Yard, that's the only time you ever see him exerting his full authority. On the flip side, something which might be important to bring up for Sherlock is the way he threatens Edith when they first meet. That might just be my experience, but I've never seen Sherlock threaten someone by using his connection to Mycroft before. Scotland Yard maybe, but never Mycroft. It seemed extremely out of character on a first watch. But as the conversation continued, it became clear that Edith had some preconceptions about the Holmes family because she's friends with his mom. Sherlock knows that Eudora Holmes doesn't view him or Mycroft very highly, and that made me wonder if he brought up Mycroft as a threat because he knew that's what Edith would expect from him, and he knew that Edith would believe it. I could never see Sherlock actually making good on that threat, but I could see him using his reputation to his advantage. That's the only way I can reconcile this scene. And if that's true, then it also bleeds into the rest of the film, because you see Sherlock continually displaying a sort of dichotomy, trying to maintain a good reputation and a good standing, but also at the same time acknowledging and using what he knows about how the public sees him in that moment. And that might be the mindset he takes for the hat. Sherlock knows he's already somewhat cut off from society, and he doesn't like making small talk, and he doesn't want to get married, so for him, wearing a hat wouldn't actually carry too much benefit or salvage too much respectability. On a completely unrelated note, his hair is very curly, and I don't know how a top hat would look to him, but I know that Sherlock is kind of vain, so maybe he thinks he just looks better without a hat and cuts his losses. So we've got that covered. Hatless head, repulsive, what's left? Oh yeah, okay, so some people thought Henry Cavill was too buff to be Sherlock Holmes. And, I mean, most Victorian gentlemen probably didn't have this kind of build compared to Mycroft. Again, he looks very different, but if you consider Sherlock as a character, it is completely plausible. I mean, Sherlock is a pugilist. He catches criminals. Sometimes he'll let Scotland Yard do their job, but he also sometimes just ends up doing the whole job for them. And most importantly, he's a master of disguise, which wasn't really touched on in this film, but I hope it gets utilized in the future. If someone with a build like Mycroft pretends to be part of the working class, nobody's going to believe he's actually used to that kind of work. But if Sherlock dresses for the part and obscures his face a little, he has a much better chance of blending in. Like the hat, his build is something that's out of place for someone from his class, but it's something he might have done because he prizes his work more. Sherlock Holmes in this movie is kind of like Keeley from the Hobbit films. He has the Keeley syndrome, basically. Keeley is a dwarf, and he looks attractive to the audience, but he's actually canonically ugly in the movies because he has no beard, and beards are a part of what make dwarves attractive in dwarven society. So that's basically what happens with Sherlock and Enola Holmes. Anyways, thanks for watching this video. Bye!